This is actually, this is as old as my guitar. My guitar is about 40 years old. The guy who I bought the guitar from actually gave me these, okay? I have another one at home, but I only bring one. But this is an African talking drum. You hit it with the stick. You can also play it on this side too. Anybody? Young man, yes, all right. Okay. All right. So that's an African instrument. Here's another African instrument too, by the way. Anybody? You guys got instruments here. Anybody here who doesn't have? Young lady, would you like an instrument? Oh, come on down. Come on down. All right. Then the other one, another African instrument that I have is actually this. A friend of mine went to Colombia, and actually he got this in Colombia, South America. Would you like to? You already have one, don't you? You want to trade, don't you? Okay. Would you like to hold on to them?
Sure.
Okay. All right, all right. Now this one is a really interesting instrument. You've seen these before. Actually, these are from Jamaica, okay? Jamaica. So Jamaica, the reason you're going to find this is because Jamaica has that strong African influence, okay? And the reason I'm showing you the African instruments is because in the Caribbean, especially in the Caribbean, our ancestors happen to be Spanish, Indian, a little bit of Indian, and African. You have to remember that when the Africans were brought over to the New World, they actually landed in Hispaniola, and Hispaniola happens to be the Dominican Republic, okay? And so when you, for example, you look at Haiti, okay, Haiti, you see people that are features that are African, and so again, in Puerto Rico, you'll find the same thing. What happened especially in Puerto Rico and Cuba, when they brought the African slaves over, the slaves actually settled around the coast of the island, not inside the island, but around the coast. And the same thing happened in Cuba. And so what happens also is that they start mixing, okay? The Indians, and then with the African, and with the Spanish, okay? So now we're this big mix. And by the way, I had a friend who called me the other night because, as you know, we're going through the census, and they're saying, well, the census says that what ethnic group you belong to. And so they give you Mexican, American, Puerto Rican, Cuban, and so they break it down. And then I'm thinking, oh, that's it. But then the other question is, what race do you belong to? Now, that's a tricky one, because I have a friend, Mexican American, who called me and he says, but what do I put down? I said, well, you got to put down either that you're white, you're black, or you're Asian. What do you want to consider yourself? Okay? And so he says, I am more mixed up right now than before. Okay? Yes. Oh, sure, hon. So again, the question then is, what do we consider ourselves, And see, what do you put down? Actually, a lot of people, a lot of Latinos will put down that they're white, okay? Now, I sat down to fill mine out. Guess what do you think I put? No, well, I put Latino. I put Puerto Rican, yes, of Spanish ancestry, okay? Or his Latin ancestry. And actually, the race that I put down. Actually, I put down African American. My wife says, why do you consider yourself African? I said, because if I'm given my choice, that's who I'm going to be then. Because, and the reason is this. I come from a family who my father was very light-skinned, blue eyes, light hair. And I've always felt my mother's side happened to be black Puerto Rican. So you always felt this affinity, so with African Americans. I always felt this affinity. Because we've gone through so much. We've almost gone through the same things, poverty, racism, discrimination, so I can relate more to that experience. And so that's what I chose, you know. And so people think I'm crazy. I know. People think, well, you should be considered white. But I figured, no, that's okay, you know. But again, that's a tough choice for people. Some Latinos, not a lot, but some Latinos, they have that issue is that what do they consider themselves? Either what race? Because Latinismo is not a race because we are a mix. We are white, we are Indian, and we are African American, African too. So, you know, again, what do you pick? It's a tough one. Yeah, and Asian, right. They just found out, by the way, they did, Oprah came out, I don't know if you've seen this show, where they do studies of DNA. And there's this Eva Longoria, by the way. You know Eva Longoria. She's Chicana, or Mexican American. And they found out that she's related to that violinist who's Asian, I think Japanese. Yo-Yo Ma, right. They're related. They somehow have somebody in common. They found out that they have a kin in common. She's saying, hold it, all this time I'm thinking I'm Mexican American, you know, and I could be Chinese or Japanese too. So, but even in Puerto Rico, by the way, for example, in Puerto Rico, you'll find that the French, we find Irish, who settled on the island, okay? And we also find Italian. So there's this big mix. My grandfather's last name was Donato. Donato is actually an Italian last name, okay? So that means that somewhere along the line, I am part Italian too, okay? So I figured, boy, this is really a mix, ain't it? But again, you know, this whole mix of these mixtures, we've come up with names for ourselves: Puerto Ricans, okay? Cubans, Jamaicans, you know. And so again, because of these different, you know, races that we've come together, you know, so we're all a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And if you talk about rainbow people, you know, I mean, minority people are rainbow people, really, you know, because you can't say, you know, like, for example, Latinos, we can be very dark, you know, African, you know, look, black. We can also be very light-skinned, green eyes, blonde hair, like in Mexico. If you go to Guadalajara, have you ever been to Guadalajara? I have. That's where you'll find the light-skinned Mexican, blue-eyed, green eyes, you know. You go to Veracruz in Mexico, and you'll find more of somebody who's more my color, you know, more Caribbean. But if you go into Puebla, Puebla happens to be where you find more of the Indian features, you know. So it's a big mixture, you know, of races even within, you know, Mexico, okay? And they just found out not too long ago, about 15 years ago, they found African villages actually off the coast around Veracruz, okay, in the Gulf Coast, that there were African villages there in Mexico. So again, the next song I want to do is from Cuba, because we need to move on with this music stuff, because I need you to play with me, okay? The next song is called Tanah Merah. You've heard it before, right? Tanah Merah. Tanah Merah talks about friendships, talks about having friends, about giving a red rose to each friend. And that's what I promote with children, with young adults, is you need to pick good friends. You know, good friends that will be there with you through the good and the bad times. But now, the other part is, if they start telling you to do bad things, they're really not good friends at all, okay? Where you feel uncomfortable doing things. So it's really important that this song was written, and Jose Marti from Cuba wrote the lyrics, actually wrote 150 lyrics to this poem. Not that we're going to sing them all, or verses, okay? So we're just going to do about 3 or 4. But it's a really nice song. It's like a song montuno. Yeah. Tanah Merah, Guajira, Tanah Merah, Tanah Merah, Guajira, Tanah Merah, Tanah Merah, Guajira, Tanah Merah. Yo soy un hombre sincero. Wait up, folks, wait up. My friend is having some problems there, okay? My friend is having some real issues here. Okay, all right. You hold it like this. Hold it. Okay. No, just leave it there. That's what I do with mine. Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
Okay. Blame it on him. Don't blame it on me, okay? It's his fault.